Hey everybody, Josh Hannabury here, Truck Focus Podcast. First off, hope you're having a really good day. Welcome back. If you're a return listener, if this is your first time, super happy that you're going to invest some time with us today. So I'm super excited to have Shawn Mengel on the podcast. Shawn's an over-the-road professional out of Saskatchewan. And honestly, first off, I really, really value and respect how much Shawn cares about his family. And during our interview, he just does a fantastic job highlighting how much his family, so his wife and his kids, really mean to him. And as he likes to say in the episode, his wife is the glue that keeps everything together. And I think that's super empowering, just knowing the different challenges that professional drivers face while they're over the road. So Shawn does a great job just highlighting his journey, highlighting what their family has been through, and the importance of family and the importance of being willing to help each other out. And I'm excited for today's episode. So it's a really good listen if you're maybe navigating through as a career path, or you're thinking about getting into becoming a professional driver, but you're questioning, okay, I have a family and how do I make this work? Honestly, Shawn does a really good job in this interview highlighting that. And they've gone through some pretty tough times, to say the least. And hats off to Easton, their son. You're a champ. Super hyped that things are just getting better. And I don't want to give too much of the interview away. Highly recommend that you check it out. But again, thank you so much, Shawn, for just being vulnerable, but showing your passion for your family and your profession. It really does mean a lot. And I think you did a really good job just highlighting what a professional driver's life is all about and remembering that we're all human. I think that's a really big takeaway. So stay tuned. We're getting started right away. So thank you so much again. Have a great day. Hey, Shawn, welcome to the Truck Focus Podcast. Super excited to have you on today.
Hi, Josh. I'm glad to be here.
I appreciate that very much. So why don't you start us off, kind of highlight who is Shawn and how did you get into the transportation industry?
Well, I am just your, typical, dad, got a family, 3 kids, wife, and 5 dogs, 4 cats, typical. And I was just out there, trying to make a living, selling welding rods, driving around all of southern Saskatchewan selling welding rods. And I got talking with this one company out of Regina, like drilling with an auger rig. And they hired me on for the winter drill program up in northern Alberta. And from there, they put me through the training to get my 1A so that I could be a driller. And we had to move our own rigs and haul them around with flat decks, or the rig itself. It was a wheeled rig. And that's how I started getting into driving truck, was through them.
Incredible. Yeah. Off camera, we were talking about I guess we've done it over 3 conversations, but we share the experience of northern Alberta and just different life out there. Obviously, size of equipment to, you want me to do what in what temperature? So that's a good part of your story though, because I think it really highlights opportunity in industry, because most people don't really, in my experience, comprehend what is trucking and what it takes to actually get your license and the amount of variation there is when you're hauling. So your firsthand experience with that many moving parts and that much pressure, it's a really good entry point into the industry.
Yeah. Like that first winter, I was just a floor hand, and they were already talking to me, like in the spring, we'll send you in for your training and get your 1A. So all the drillers and management staff, got to go to Florida, to Miami for a convention. And I stayed back and got my 1A.
Shucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good. How long were you working for them, like hauling equipment and stuff like that, before you transitioned to what you're doing now?
I was with them for about 5 years. So I'd say 4.5, better part of 4.5, maybe a little bit longer, actually driving truck with them, like hauling our own equipment around.
Nice. No, that's awesome. And then I guess what led to the change? I know we're going to dive into what you're hauling now, but was it a family decision? Was it just a schedule, different opportunity, or what kind of sparked the change from hauling that to what you're doing now?
I really liked working for that other company. It was fun work. It was fast paced, and then, but like the oil industry, started getting slower. And we didn't do just stuff with oil field. We did a lot of soil testing, for if they're at gas stations, be it or whatever, testing the ground and stuff like that. But they had enough employees that they had to try to keep busy, so they didn't want to do layoffs. So work was getting kind of spread out. So, and I'm the only income coming into our house. My wife's a stay-at-home mom, so I kind of got to go and look for that steadier work.
Yeah.
So then this opportunity came up to haul fuel, and went and talked to the boss, and he took a chance. I never pulled tanker before, and B train, I never pulled that. I was just a flat deck guy, and he took a chance, and I've been there for 5 years now.
Good for you.
Over 5 years.
Good for you. Yeah, and hats off, honestly, something I really respect about you. And I have, again, for the couple of conversations where I actually got to learn, okay, who is Shawn, is I really, really, really value how passionate you are to serve your family. And if that's protecting, if that's putting food on the table, if that's working together, which we'll dive into in a little bit, really, really respect that, because I think it's hard to find people that understand like the full commitment. And I'm learning myself. I have 2 kids, and just what it takes after a long day or after a long night. It's just really encouraging listening to just how passionate you get when you're like, well, of course there's this, and of course there's that. And just, yeah, hats off, man. I think it's a huge quality that you have for sure.
Yeah. And another thing that really enticed me, like I started off like hauling fuel. I was in a bunk truck, so we were doing 4 and 4. I'd be 4 days out and home 4 days, and we thought that was really good or whatever. But then, notice, I might need a little bit more than just that 4 days work. So a day cab position came up, pulling 9 axle, and that just mainly just stayed in Saskatchewan, southern Saskatchewan, home every day. But, working straight nights, but it kind of worked out for the better, because I do actually get to see my family a lot more, even though I work nights, but I get to see them sometimes twice a day instead of not at all.
Right.
May only be for a few minutes or like a 30 minutes or an hour here and there, but I do get to see them every day. So
right.
it kind of worked out. A blessing in disguise, you might as well say, working nights.
Yeah, no, for sure. So what would a typical night look like because you're in a day cab right now, and you're hauling fuel, and you're at night. So what would a typical day look like? Or I guess, what would a typical night look like for you?
Well, my cross shift, like day guy, he'll shoot me a text or whatever when he's about hour and a half, when he figures he's going to be back at the shop. So that gives me time, because I got, an hour drive to get to where I got to go to work. So he gives me that hour and a half notice. So then I go there, and if he has time, if he didn't run out of hours, he'll typically have it loaded for me. So then I can just hop in the truck and go to my destination or my first destination, depending on how many loads I have that night or stops. And then, if I don't have to load, I hit the road and take off to wherever I got to go and come back. Sometimes I got 2 different loads a night, so head back to go load up again and head out on my second trip.
That's awesome.
And then come back and then load for him. Hopefully I have time to load for him so he can go out and do the same thing the next day.
Right. Yeah, no, that's good. It's nice to hear that there's good communication there, and you guys obviously respect each other, and you try and set each other up for success, which is nice to see in the industry for sure.
Well, yeah, like especially like sometimes, we got a longer run, where I might have to drive 4 or 5 hours just to get there. And if I got to sit and wait in a lineup or something to load, I might not have time to do my run. So if we try to work with each other, we can get each other on the road a little bit quicker and hopefully get our job done.
Totally. So what would it take then for you in regards to preparation for a night shift? Do you bring enough food? Is it a water supply? Is it knowing your route for bathrooms? Or how do you prepare for a night shift in, obviously being in Saskatchewan, a little less population than I'd say in Calgary? So I know there's different challenges that you face.
Well, I always like to know where I'm going that night, because, there's times where, like, if I'm going like south of Moose Jaw, for example, I might not see a store that's open for 5-6 hours. So I got to make sure, I got plenty of water with me, food and stuff like that. But just even other stuff that a lot of people don't even think about, like, you're driving around, well, if there's nothing open, you're not going to have a washroom, and like you get down in the rural areas, even a lot of the card locks, they don't even have washrooms that you can use at the card locks. So you got to kind of be mindful of that too. And then come wintertime, you got to be a little bit more prepared and see about what the weather is going to be like in all these different places. Because, in Saskatchewan, like it is in a lot of other places, 15 minutes down the road and it's completely different weather. So, unfortunately, my wife, she's got all these destinations on her weather app. If you look at all the destinations, it's all these places that I frequently go to and Orlando because she wants to live in Orlando. But other than that, she looks at the weather app and she'll let me know, like, oh, there's a blizzard coming to this town. This is where you're going. So, watch the roads and be careful, kind of thing.
Nice. Yeah, I think what you go through is taken for granted from, I'll say, a typical day-to-day person that just, oh, there's a truck hauling fuel going here, but they're not actually thinking of all of those things that you have to prepare for the night ahead, because if something's closed. So yeah, I think that could be a really tough challenge, but good job for planning ahead. And it's nice that your wife is that. I would say, as we get more into this conversation too, she's a really, really impactful woman, which I think is incredible. And it's nice that she cares about those things too, because those are finer details that I know a lot of over the road drivers that would just turn the truck on and go and not even think, oh yeah, it's probably going to change 15 minutes down the road. So it's nice to see the preparation for sure.
Oh yeah, like it's, yeah, I know my wife's not right in the truck with me, but it's still a team effort, to get me through the night, because she wants me to get home after my shift just as much as I want to get home. So, like I know there's a lot of nights that she might have a sleepless night if she knows that there's, bad weather on the road, and then she might be a little bit more worried, until she knows I'm, safe and sound back in the city or back where the weather's good and stuff like that. So it's really a team effort, even though she's not even with me in the truck, but she's just as much of me getting my job done as me. So
it's huge. That's huge. Yeah. And I think a lot of spouses, doesn't always have to be the wife, sometimes it's the opposite. I think a lot of spouses go through that, and maybe they do it alone, where they're trying to help and they're trying to plan. And we see that on Facebook all the time, like, hey, my husband or my wife's going here, what am I looking out for? But it's again, I just really respect the team mentality, and I always say it's a family mission, and I think you guys do a phenomenal job owning that space too. So it's just nice to see.
Well, thanks.
So yeah, absolutely. So being a knight, seeing that you have 4 kids, you said 4 dogs, 5 cats?
No, 3 kids.
Oh, sorry, 3 kids, 4 dogs?
5 dogs,
5,
4 cats.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Where
live
do
in
you...
a zoo.
Sorry?
We live in a zoo.
I was going to say, very busy, very active household. How do you find the sleep, the recovery, even just being the fact that we're men, just a little bit of downtime? How do you find that navigating through night shift and everything else?
It's really good. Like I get good sleep. Like our house is for the most part it's pretty quiet. When I get up in the bedroom, I can fall asleep, and because I'm so tired from the night of work, I can sleep through quite a bit of stuff. So, and being that we have 5 dogs, they're surprisingly pretty quiet. Like they like to spend most of their time outside too. Like in the summertime, our family spends a lot of time outside, like everything, like we got, a great outdoor space that, family likes to spend a lot of time in. So it does help with being able to sleep during the day, because, and kids are in school and stuff like that. Like our youngest is 4, so he's not in school yet, but, yeah, I try to get my, at least 6-7 hours of sleep. And sometimes you only get 10 hours off in between, if my partner maybe wasn't at work or he had a short day that day. So like really it would put 2 hours of commute in there. That only gives me, 8 hours at home. So get my 6-7 hours sleep, eat and go. It's a quick turnaround, but done it for 5 years and it seems to work out all right for the most part.
Good. It's nice. And yeah, you guys, again, like you're doing a really good job as a family, which I really like to highlight, because I think that's something that's not talked about enough until you're living it. And the fact that you guys are living it and you're set up and you're comfortable, but you're still able to get enough sleep, I think that's important. So it's good. So so when we first spoke on the phone, I won't lie, it really, what you shared in regards to Easton was really emotional and empowering all at the same time, because obviously there's light at the end of the tunnel. And I just think it's really important to highlight the fact that your wife is a superwoman. She does from the weather apps to handling the family to really helping you in a lot of different ways. I think that's something that we should really highlight, really respect. And I really respect the fact that you highlight that so passionately. And why I bring that up is I'd really like to kind of navigate through, I guess, how how did it start with Easton? What is CRPS, and how much credit can you give to your wife for helping your family get through this while you're still trying to navigate over the road?
Well, 2018, when he was 8, he just started his first year of football, and they were doing their practice and all that, and he got tackled and tore his ACL. So like we didn't know at that time, obviously, and like I was, obviously I was out working or whatever. So I got a message from my wife. Easton got hurt. We'll take him to the doctor tomorrow. So it was an evening practice, and we'll take him and see. So we took him to the doctor and finally got him into a specialist. Like his leg was kind of locked at a 90-degree angle. Got him into a athletic specialist, and he said my boy was faking it. Said that kids don't tear their ACL. It doesn't happen. And like he can't, and he's moving his leg and he's trying to straighten and all that while my boy's sitting there, screaming his head off. But eventually we got him to see the right specialist, a children's specialist, and she saw the tear in his ACL right away on the MRI and all that stuff. And it started the process of getting him into, physio and all that. And then physio mixed up his file and thought he was a 30-year-old, so he got put at the bottom of the pile. So it was months until he actually got into physio, and by that time it turned into this disease or syndrome he called CRPS, which is complex regional pain syndrome. And what that is, it's basically the nerves are telling his brain that he's in pain and constantly in pain. And most people that it happens to, which is a very few, like it's a very rare disease, it only affects the affected limb. So if it's your leg or your arm or whatever, that's what's going to hurt. And then even a smaller amount of people, it goes full body on, where it's the whole body that hurts. And it went full body for my boy. And it is also known as the most painful disease in the world. It's higher than getting amputation. It's higher than childbirth. Like there's nothing that people can experience worse for pain. And it also started going internal on him towards the end, where like he couldn't even eat. He was always, getting sick after he ate, and he was having problems breathing. Like, it was a pretty stressful time for 2 years.
Wow.
And my wife dealt with a lot of it because I had to work on the road. Like I was home every day, but like like something had happened or whatever, and she knew what she could tell me. If something happened, so that I wouldn't worry too much while I was working, because she didn't want it on my mind too much. And she knew what she kind of had to hold back until I was home, or even sometimes to the weekend. So I had a little bit more time to process, if it was something really major. And, some people might be like, well, you got to share everything right away. But you got to think, I'm out on the road at night, sometimes driving through a blizzard and all that. You don't want to hear some bad news, and all of a sudden you got that on your mind. So you got to kind of keep your wits about you and, keep your mind on the road. So she tried to like filter a lot of stuff through, or a lot of stuff from me until, I was home, and, or she knew I was off the road, and then she could tell me, and then I had time to process it, and then we could go from there. So like she has gone over and above, like through this whole process with, dealing with the CRPS, the doctor's appointments, and then doctors not even taking it serious after he was diagnosed. Like we totally got, forgotten by the healthcare system. Like they threw us aside, like months in between appointments. He had a pain team. We thought things were going to be awesome. He's got, was it 5 or 6 different doctors on this pain team. We're going to get this stuff figured out. Well, the interviews, like the conferences, started getting a little bit farther in between, and then you've got a new therapist to talk to, and this therapist is like, stuff's going to change now. Like from this day on, things are going to be good. And the very next appointment he was supposed to have with a therapist, he forgot about it. Never heard from that therapist again. So just kept on getting forgot about it. And it got, like, we were getting frustrated. And so like through a lot of research and all that, like, we found, like my wife found a place in Italy that actually has a treatment for it. CRPS, but expensive treatment, and obviously, like anytime that we would bring it up to his pain doctor, she would change the subject right away. She didn't want to talk about it at all. And then so we just decided to figure this out on our own. Like we started doing a little bit of fundraising, and then stuff happened with work. Work kind of got a little bit sketchy there for a bit with something that was going on where I load fuel out of, and then the pandemic hit. So kind of fundraising kind of took a little bit of a stall there, and then so we didn't know if anything was gonna happen. Like, and like our boy's just sitting here, like, and you can't even give him a hug. He's in so much pain, you can't even touch him. You can't make him feel better. Like all you can do is like talk to him. Maybe give him a little like little light pat on the back or something. But you can't actually like grab him and give him a hug. So then my wife, being the stubborn superhero that she is, just wouldn't give up. She kept on looking and looking and looking on the internet. And then she finally, put a few things together, and she figured out something that, made my boy feel better. It got him into remission. Like he's almost like back to being a normal 11-year-old now. He's back to school. He's 4 half days a week now. It wipes him out that half day. Like he's tired and, don't want to get him to do anything else the rest of that day. He wants to sleep. But, he's back, and he's talking about wanting to play football again. Like he's happy he's getting his life back. And that's all because of my wife. Like she figures something out and it's working, and it keeps him in remission. He still gets a little bit of flares here and there, but she does, like, what she does, and, gets him back feeling better, gets it back under control right away.
Power, man. And hats off to you, your wife, to Easton, your other kids too, because that would be really difficult, I think, for everyone. And yeah. I think he's almost there is the best part, because I couldn't imagine. And you've seen Avery, and he's also 11. And when you first shared that with me, it was like I told my wife once we were off the phone, because I'm like, man, like tough is a compliment. And it's like, how do you be so tough, and how do you still focus, like you as a person, how do you focus on everything else that you need to focus on? How would your wife, like, I just couldn't imagine navigating that. So hats off to you guys for making that happen. And
to be completely honest, I don't know how we did it either.
Yeah.
And like my son, he's the one that actually like experienced all this pain. And people would come over and he put a smile on his face every time. Nobody saw his pain except us. He would hide it. I don't know how he would hide it. Like I get a little cold, and it's the man flu right away. I'm up down and out, and don't want to get off the couch. And like my boy said, like the pain at its worst when he like there was always a bit of pain there. Like I shouldn't say a bit, there was always pain there, but he would get these flares, and he said at its worst, it would be like getting shot while getting acid poured on while getting burnt all at the same time. Like we would go, like he was in a wheelchair, like he couldn't go for walks, like he couldn't walk, he couldn't do anything. Like he was just kind of like, on the couch, and like we'd put him in a wheelchair and we'd take him out when we could or whatever. But there's a lot of times he didn't want to leave the house. So like we would just go like walk to the store, like we're close to the grocery store, and we'd be walking back, and you could hear, like we'd be like 2-3 houses down, and you could hear him screaming, but he just needed to do that on his own. He didn't want people around him. Like he, for 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old, going through all, or I guess 9, 10, 11, he grew up faster than he had to. He had to realize, life's going to be different for him. And then my wife, helped him, and now like he has his life back. It's coming back. He's his dream of going into the military. Like he's going to be able to do that, or become a cop. Like he's kind of going back and forth on that stuff all the time.
Nice.
But it's good to see that smile on his face. Like there's many times that he wanted to give up, but then he, started fighting again. And like that inspiration alone, like you see a little kid fighting like that, he just doesn't want to make anybody give up.
Yes. Yeah. I could imagine that's an emotional roller coaster too, because when he's pushing through, I think it's a good self-reflection moment to say, okay, what am I actually stressed about aside from this situation? And a lot of that becomes very minute, because this is what matters most. And when, you see the smiles and I'm sure the first time he was laughing again, that would have been like a tearjerker, because it's like, okay, like this is my boy. And yeah, man, I just hats off to both of you guys, like as parents, and hats off to Easton for just continuing to fight. And because I was reading the one article, and it was the socks that was part of the foundation or the funding, right?
Well, the socks for smiles, because like my boy, he really liked socks. Like it was the one thing that gave him comfort, like that it made him feel better. I don't know exactly how, but like socks did. So my daughter, she started this little thing called Socks for Smiles, and started getting all over the internet and some news articles. And next thing you know, like he's getting socks from all over the world, like well over 200. I think it was well over 200 different pairs of socks. Russia, Italy, like all these different places socks come from. Like, and it put a smile on his face. See all these different, like he could wear a different pair of socks almost every day of the year and not have to wear the same ones twice. Like it was amazing. Like it's just little things like that. Like a distraction is a good thing that helped with CRPS. If you can get him distracted, it would also help him, take the flares away. Because like I said, it's kind of all in the mind. Like the pain is real to him, but it's not real. And like the smallest little things could, like one example, my I guess he probably would have been 2 at the time, or youngest, went to go put the glasses, like he stole my son's glasses, and he went to go put them back on his face and jabbed the arm right in my son's eye. That put him in remission. 2 weeks pain-free, completely pain-free from getting jabbed in the eye. And that was the first time he ever went into remission. And
Wow.
like nobody knows how it happened. Like it just all of a sudden, but it came back after, like we got a couple good weeks there, and I got to see him run around and be happy and throw the basketball. We got basketball hoop in our living room, like everybody does, and everybody, right?
Yes.
And so like he's throwing, about throwing hoops and stuff in the living room, and but it came back, and we kind of lost hope again, and that tunnel got a little bit longer. The light went a little further away, and then, like I said, my wife, she figured something out, and that tunnel just got a whole lot shorter for us now.
Wow. Honestly, just let's hope he continues to go in that direction. And I think it's incredible just how, I'd say, how powerful your wife is for your family and for you. But in your own words, I don't want to take your thunder by any means. I'm just, it's a lot to process, man. Like honestly, hats off to you guys. But how is your wife's love and support? Sometimes it's protection, sheltering you from certain pieces of information until she felt you could handle it. But how has that impacted you as, like, obviously a dad, but also as a professional driver while you're still out on the road? Like, how do you find, in, I guess, self-reflection, how did that help? And did it, well, I'm assuming yes, I'll ask the question. How did it help? And how can you kind of summarize that part?
Well, it really helped with, like, like I said, with her, keeping stuff from me, like for a bit, really helped with the mental health. It kept my mind on my job. I was able to keep my mind on my job. Like try to, like, not forget about it, but put stuff in the back of my mind. And so like I said, she picked and choose what she could let me know that night if something happened. And if it was something major, she'd hold it for me. And it helped me keep my mind on the task at hand, because I'm not going to be any help to anybody if I end up worrying about something, not paying attention to the road, and like also I'm in the ditch, or if it's real bad, I'm get stuck in a snowbank somewhere just because my mind's kind of wandering a bit. And dealing with fuel, I'm essentially driving a huge bomb down the road, so I kind of gotta keep my wits about me, and make sure everything's going good. And when I'm doing my deliveries, putting stuff in the right tank, so I'm not putting in a mix, because if I do a mix, then it's a chain of events that happen after that mix. So all of a sudden some vehicles aren't going to be running right, and then that tank's got to get drained. Like it's all a snowball effect. And like I said, one little thing, if she told me something and my mind could be off, that could potentially be a whole world of a big mess later on down the road. But because she held a few things back until I got home, or until the weekend, if it was something, obviously if it was something like I needed to know right away, she would let me know, but like if it was something that she could hold back, that she knew I'd be worried about, like amazing what she has put up with, you know, like what's going through on in her mind. I couldn't even imagine. And, you know, and she still, you know, puts a smile on her face. You know, someone phones her, like one of her friends, you know, they got a problem. She'll, you know, if she can, she puts stuff down, she goes, sits outside, has a coffee and talks to her friends, try to help them out, you know. She puts herself last in everything, everything. You know, my daughter, she's celiac. We found this out recently. And while with celiac, you know, you can't eat gluten. So start cutting gluten now. While, you know, a lot of gluten-free foods isn't really the most tasteful things. And then on top of that, we found out my daughter is also allergic to soy. So if you think gluten's bad, soy's and everything else that gluten's not. So it's even less stuff. And my wife's like, you know what, the food's terrible. So she took it upon herself to learn some baking for gluten-free and soy-free. And she's got by far like some of the best cookies and cookie dough and pizza dough and like all the stuff you've ever had. Like it tastes better than normal stuff. Like she took it upon herself to learn how to bake this stuff and make it taste good, you know. And yeah, I just think she doesn't give up. She finds something, you know, she's gonna figure out a way. She's gonna figure out a way to make it work. And then on top of that, she is restaining her kitchen cabinets, you know, like she doesn't know how to stop. And I think a lot of it, she keeps herself busy because maybe that's what keeps her mind, you
Right.
know, and keeps her mental health good, is because busy work. It's a bunch of little busy work here and there. Wow, she's just amazing. Like I wouldn't be able to do anything that I've done now without her. You know, she's been a part of every major thing that's ever happened in my life. Like I met her when I was in high school. You know, she was there right from the beginning. Like my mom passed away when I was 18. She was there, you know, like she's just been there.
Yeah, and it's nice to hear you run with that passion, honestly, Shawn, because I don't think someone can ever be tired enough, or I guess get tired of hearing that. Like, I don't think there's like a cap on appreciation, but I think the fact that you're willing to be vulnerable enough to say that kind of things, to me especially, is it's super empowering. Because like when I think about my wife, I have a massive list that I could just start going, and I'm like, she's incredible at this, and she's done this, and she saved my life countless of times. And it's just, again, I really respect that, and I respect the fact that your wife respects that, because I don't think she would do everything she's doing if she didn't realize the impact of it. And again, it's a family mission, and I think that's so incredible, because it's I'd say it's hard to find too, because it takes a lot of work. But the fact, like I said, you have that passion, and I said that literally the first time that we spoke, and I'll say it now, it's like you have a passion for your family that I think needs to be highlighted. And to me, that's a big point of this interview too. Once I learned that, was, yeah, like-minded people, very different lives, sure, like we live different places, but it's really nice to hear your appreciation for everything that she does, and just you actually know everything that she does has a positive impact on your life, where some people I know just kind of brush it off. And I'm like, no, let's really highlight this. So I'm just really grateful that you shared it. I think that's huge.
Well, like what we've experienced, you know, over the last, you know, 2, 3 years is like brought our family like super, super close. Like even like my daughter, you know, 15 years old, and you know, we all hang out together on the couch, you know, watching TV or go do things together. You know, a lot of like I talked to, you know, other families and all that, like, you know, their teenage kids, they're down in their room, you know, doing their thing. But you know, our daughter, she's hanging out with us. We all hang out together. Like this last couple of years have really, really pulled us together as a family. And you know, and a big part of that, you know, is my wife. You know, she kept us. She's the glue that held this family together through the what was our roughest time that we've. I hope no family ever has to experience what we went through in the last couple of years. You know, that's like CRPS is crazy and it's very rare, and you know, it's even more rare in kids. You know, and then you throw it on top of like the full body, and then going internal. Like it's super rare. Like it's a super high. There's a very high suicide rate with people that get CRPS because they give up. And when I see what my boy went through, and there's no cure for it. There's no real treatment. It's just they try to, you know, pack a bunch of drugs on, like drugs to make you try to hopefully forget about the pain, and you know, a bunch of physio and stuff like that. And sometimes you get into remission, sometimes you don't. You know, and I hear, like I was reading stories of people, you know, 30, 40, 50 years they've been suffering with CRPS, you know, and I just like I didn't want to see my boy going through that for his whole life. But you know, he's always going to have it. But as long as you know what they're doing now is working, you know, hopefully he can have a pretty normal life from here on out.
Totally. Yeah, I really hope for that too. And it's just, yeah, the smiling. And I think the fact that you guys are so invested into his well-being and in his life. And if it's your daughter at 15, which isn't very common, you're right, to have them still want to be involved, I think, yeah, as a family, it's really empowering. And yeah, you definitely have my hopes for him too, because I couldn't imagine, but the fact that, yeah, he's getting better and that he'll continue to get better is definitely the goal. So I think that's powerful for sure.
The one thing that we did come from this, and we always tell people, you know, like especially because, well, we got a lot of friends obviously with kids, you know, that are in sports and stuff like that, and you know, kids get hurt. And one thing we took from this, if your kid gets hurt and you know the doctor says, you know, this or that or whatever, but they're still complaining about it, you know, your kids are still complaining about it, take it that little extra further, push that little extra, because like you don't know.
Yeah.
Anything can happen. So.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that's really good advice, especially when people say they're busy, or to hear a doctor try and say that someone's faking something and you're like, no, that's not true. But yeah, I think that's super, super valuable advice.
You know your kids. You know your kids. You know if something's actually wrong. So you can't let a doctor tell you they're faking it, like which we didn't, but you gotta push to make sure they see the right doctor, you know. That's the one thing that we should have done right from the bed, right from the start is no, like this, he isn't a kid's doctor, you know. He's not a kid's specialist. You gotta take him to the kid because he didn't know what to look for in the MRI for the torn ACL. Because it was a very fine tear and like kids, it's a lot harder to see, and that's what that other specialist said. You know, and then it was actually his physiotherapist that actually got the diagnosis for CRPS because she recognized it right away because she learned about it. I think she was dealing with somebody that had it, or in when she was like in school or whatever, she learned about it. So she's actually the one that actually got his diagnosis, you know, and then that's what got the ball rolling with the pain team and all that. But then, like I said, then they dropped the ball on us too. So it's just like we just kept on getting forgotten about, and you know, if anybody's kid gets, just don't let that happen. Push
Huge.
for answers.
Yes.
You know.
Yes. Yeah. And that was going to be one of my questions that I hope we get to, and I think we can ask it now, is seeing as you as a professional driver, you've been through, honestly, a lot, like a lot's an understatement. And you mentioned mental health. You mentioned the fact that your wife has been the glue, which I really respect. So would you be comfortable sharing advice maybe to other professional drivers that are on the road? They're trying to focus on the job at hand, knowing all this stuff's going on at home. Is there any advice that you would give to them? Like maybe they're navigating something totally different, but it's super hard to stay focused on the job. And yeah, is there anything that you'd like to share there?
You know, like what I found that helped me a lot when I was driving, I did have stuff on my mind, like, you know, like obviously, you know, satellite radio or CDs, you're going to be listening to music, but you've heard every song, you know, 3, 4, 5, 600 times, you know, so your mind starts wandering again. So like podcasts, you know, like I got a whole different variety of different kinds from comedy to crime podcast, more story-based fictional ones, you know, and I can set up, I can make a playlist. I kind of approximately know how many hours I'm driving that night, so I set a playlist up so I don't have to touch my phone while I'm driving, and it just goes through that whole playlist of different podcasts. But it's always something new you're listening to, and then it helps keep your mind off of things. And then my wife got me, and I'm gonna apologize when I say this because it bothers me every time somebody says this, but she picked me up an Alexa Auto. Sorry, it triggered everybody's Alexa. I'm sorry. But it's awesome. Like it can, because you can play games with it, you know, trivia games. You know, it keeps your mind keeps you thinking, it keeps your mind off of things. And because you're by yourself, nobody knows how little stuff you actually do know when it comes to trivia. You know,
Totally.
like that little piece of technology has helped me out a lot, you know, and just asking questions for Google and stuff like that. Like it's a whole thing of endless information that you can keep your mind busy and keep your mind off of things at work. And plus, you know, you can ask it the weather, and like it's just a little handy little tool. Yeah, like I know you can ask like your phone, like Siri or Bixby or stuff like that. And again, I apologize. But yeah, that little auto thing that I got, it has been a lifesaver some nights for me too, to keep my mind off of things. Like distraction's a bad word, but it's kind of like distract your mind off of, you know, and then too, and not just like for the person that has the stuff on their mind. Like if you're sitting in a truck stop and like you're sitting there having a coffee, whatever, and you see somebody struggling, you know, getting into a spot, they might have something on their mind. They might not be concentrating good, you know. Get out of the truck, you know, help them out, get them back into that spot. You know, he might be struggling and getting frustrated. You know, it could be just because he's got something on his mind. Not necessarily, he might not be, maybe he isn't a little bit more inexperienced, which he could still use your knowledge too. But, you know, get out there and give them a hand instead of taking pictures and putting it on Facebook laughing at them, you know, because you know what, you're probably that guy once too.
Yes.
You know, everybody, even the most veteran driver, they're going to have struggles sometimes too, especially if something's on their mind, you know, and like, and that's another thing too, you start getting complacent, you know, and then that's when stuff starts going wrong. You know, it's all snowball effect on things, you know, everything, one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. So the more things you can do to try to keep your mind on the job at hand, the better.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's super good advice. And I really respect, I like the distraction's not a bad word. We're not talking about distracted driving, but mental health is a very different conversation. I think that's really valuable advice because it's a long time to think. And it could be an hour, it could be 5-6 hours, like you mentioned. But yeah, I think that's super important. And I'm a big advocate for helping people. So if someone can't back up properly, you're right. There's probably something else going on in their mind. Maybe it's inexperience and they're questioning themselves, or maybe it's something at home. And I think that's really good advice. Like get out, ask.
That driver could be, you know, he might have just got some really bad news.
Yes.
And he was doing the right thing. He wanted to get off the road so he can like process what he just got. No, well, if you got real bad news, you found out something really bad, you're not going to be able to like back into a tight spot so easy, or you know, get into some area. Like he might be trying to do the right thing, but and then he's getting more frustrated because he can't get in there, and it could just turn into, you know, somebody's front end getting ripped off their truck, or a trailer getting backed into or something. You know, like you don't know what's going through that driver's head that's struggling. Like, yeah, he might be new, which I said, you know, he can still use the advice from the veteran, or there might be something on his mind and he might just appreciate, you know, that little extra help, and just it might calm his nerves a little bit, you know.
Yes. Yeah. No, I
We're
agree.
all out there working together, day cap, bunk, it doesn't matter. We're all out there, you know, trying to get everybody the goods that they need.
Yeah, agreed. No, I think that's really sound advice, and I appreciate that. So something I like talking about, and I think something that you're living, maybe you don't think about it all of the time, which is fair, but when I use the term legacy, and so for our conversation, a lot of it's been about family. So when you stop and think, what do you want your kids to remember you for? Well, I guess ask the question, do you think about that? And if so, what's something that you want them to most remember you for?
That, you know, even though I might not have been here, I was always here for them, you know. Like I have had a lot of jobs that took me away, you know, took me gone on the road, you know, 5-6 weeks at a time. You know, this job, like, yeah, I was home every day, but it's almost like I am gone sometimes, you know, because like I'm working and sleeping, especially if the schedule is really tight, you know. But like I just want them to know, like, even though I'm not here, I'm always here for them, you know. Like we've all been in this together. Like we're one big, like I was saying before, like we're a very, very tight knit family, and I don't know, it just, yeah, dad's always here is what I want them to know.
Huge, man. Honestly, your guys' story is very emotional in a good way. And I think that's one of the things that I continue to grab onto, is that you're in it together, and they will remember that. And again, kids are kids, so it's hard to say what they're thinking about every millisecond of the day, but absolutely, I could see that being ingrained in them just with real life. And I think you're doing a really good job with that, man. I think it's absolutely incredible. So kind of as we kind of come to a close, if you can believe it, it's already been we're almost at the hour mark, which is super empowering. Were there any final thoughts that you wanted to share? And if someone had questions, I don't want people to be invasive by any means, and I can be the protective block between it. But if they wanted to maybe show some support to Easton, keep socks for a smile. Yeah. So if there's any opportunities there, or if they just want to help, are you comfortable if people reach out to you, basically just to kind of reach out, or what are your thoughts?
No, they can reach out, but you know, like what I take from this and like what I say, like what I want people to do is just, you know, give your kids that extra hug. Be there for your kids, you know, support them in what they want to do. And like I said, you know, don't question them all the time and stuff, especially if they do get hurt. Just like that whole, like, give your kid that extra hug. You know, you don't know what it's like when you can't. You know.
Yeah.
That's what I ask of people, you know, just take a little bit of extra time to smell the roses, as to say, you know.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's incredible. And it's very true. And that's touching when you think, like, I think about Avery, and yeah, I can imagine not being able to give him a hug. So I agree with that completely. I think that's really, really good advice for sure. So,
you know, another thing too, like, don't ever forget to tell your family how much you love them. Every time we leave one of us walks out the door, we say we love you. You know, it's just one thing we've always done, even before all this happened. It's very important, especially like, you know, like I'm going on the road. You don't know what's going to happen, but you always want to make sure that they know it, right?
Yes. Yeah. Our house was the same. I can go upstairs and one of us is saying the same thing, because I believe in that mindset too. And you really, when you focus on something and you can feel it, it's real. So I agree with that mindset for sure. So, but yeah, honestly, Shawn, I'd take my glasses off. I won't lie. I was getting a little, I'd say more emotional, and I was trying to watch your face, and I just really appreciate how vulnerable you were. I appreciate the advice. I love the fact that you can very vocally just speak so proudly of your wife too, and just knowing the impacts that she just continues to have. I think that's one of your best character traits, because I'm right there with you in I know we're in a different space, but I try and highlight my wife in the best light possible as I can too. So just really appreciate today.
Like I said, I wouldn't be even close to where I am today without the support that she had. Like, you know, with me being gone and her having to look after the house and, you know, the family and everything like that. Like I said, yeah, I am home every day now, but, you know, it's not always going to be that way either. You know, like I might be back out on the road or doing something else. You know, you never know what comes around the corner, you know, new opportunities and stuff like that. And when you got somebody that can support you and, like, you know, give you that little extra push, you know, like sometimes she has to, you know, give me a little kick in the butt, you know, try doing this, try doing that. And, you know, to have somebody like that always on your side, you know, and I hope everybody can have that, you know, like it makes being out and gone on the road that much better, you know.
Totally agree, man. Yeah. And again, I just really respect that you can highlight that, and it's an instant thing for you. Like, that's the space you live in, and I think that's super empowering for others too. So I really appreciate that very much. I thought today was a really good interview. I really appreciate our conversations, and this means a lot to me, and I'm glad we could do this. This was awesome.
Well, I'm really glad that you asked me to do this, and like, I know it wasn't, you know, 100% on trucking and all that, but at the same time, it's all to do with it too, because like, mental health is a big part of it. And if you got somebody at home that can, you know, help you get through the stuff and little tricks to help keep your mind off of, you know, if you have bad news and stuff like that, it all comes down to, you know, keeping your mind in the game when you're driving.
Completely agree. Yeah, no, this was perfect. And again, the goal is to highlight professionals and the impacts that we're having in industry, and the fact that we're people. And yeah, I felt today was a big success for sure. So I'm super grateful, very, very grateful.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Awesome, man. Okay, well, thank you so much again. I really appreciate your time, and yeah, this was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat if you asked.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, we'll definitely do it again. I know there's some big news that we'll talk about too, so it's good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, Faye. See ya. Well, Shawn, honestly, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today. Honestly, I really, really value how passionate you are about being a dad, about being a husband, but also just highlighting how important your wife is in your family's existence and the glue. I really got that you really value her. And it's just really nice to see. Honestly, Easton, buddy, you are a champ. And I couldn't imagine going through what you're going through, but please know here in Alberta and our community, we're behind you, we're cheering you on, and it's great to hear that things are getting better. And I really do hope and just hope that you just continue to go in the right direction. I really hope you get a chance to play football again soon, and thank you so much, Shawn, for sharing your story. Honestly, it was really touching. I had to take my glasses off, and we mentioned that off camera that I just being a dad myself, and those that have watched our podcast before, seeing Avery get involved and just hearing what you guys have gone through and just the challenges that Easton went through and just different things with the healthcare system and the fact that your wife, honestly, you're a superhero. And just, I really appreciate all the vulnerability and the passion. And also, I think another big takeaway is just the importance of being there for each other as people. So if it's over the road, if it's at a truck stop, if it's like you and your partner do right now and with your current carrier, just communicating so that we are prepping each other for success. Really, really important. All really big takeaways. And just thank you so much for your time. And just honestly, I'm still really touched, and I'm super grateful for just who you are as a professional in our space, but also as a dad and husband. I think you do a really, really good job. So thank you so much again. So a shout out to honestly all of our listeners. So if you're a dedicated listener, or if this is your first time, honestly, I think today was just wow, it was a phenomenal episode, and I'm just so grateful for all of your support. I'm grateful that you're on this journey with us, and just honestly, the support for Shawn, it means a lot too. So thank you so much. If you are listening to this on a podcast platform, I do ask that you hit the subscribe button, the like button, and if you feel comfortable doing so, the share button. And just, we just really appreciate all of the support. And as I like to say, the greater the following, the greater the impact. And our entire goal is to create pivotal impacts in the lives of those in our industry by connecting them to industry leaders, just like Shawn, that are creating a difference in our industry. And I just, again, thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's an investment of time when you listen to our podcast, and I just want you to know we're super grateful for that. If you're watching this on YouTube and you notice that, hey, there's some video stuff in here, same thing. If you liked it, I do ask that you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share it out, because again, Shawn's message is super empowering, and just your support really does mean a lot. If you're looking for another way to just be introduced to our industry leaders in a different format, we do have our monthly newsletter that I highly recommend that you register to. Of course, the link is below. And again, I thank you so much for all of your support. Honestly, Shawn, you rocked my world today, man. This interview was by far one of my favorites, and I just really value you as a person, and it's just so good to see you just really owning the space as a professional driver, but also as a family man, and keeping those in mind while you navigate through the road safely. Just really encouraged just by your journey, and you guys have definitely strong willpower, the no give up attitude, and I really respect that. So thank you so much for joining us again today. And again, everyone listening, thank you so much. I hope you have a really great day, and let's create a pivotal impact. Bye.